Are we doing any good, fellas?
Yes, sir.
I don't know. We're making an attempt, aren't we? Huh? Aren't we making an attempt? We met with who we hope our new district chief is, and we were talking about leadership and just vague terms, and he said, man, I lived it all my life. He was a fighter pilot in Vietnam. He was a pilot for American Airlines, and he trained, and he said what we trained on was leadership. Not so much, you had to fly the plane, but a pilot is a leader, right? So anyway, I hope you're enjoying this. I want to go back and let's talk about, summarize the first 2 weeks a little bit, okay? So I want you to repeat after me, because we kind of come up with what a leader is, right? So I'm going to say it and I want you to say it. I'm an ordinary man. I'm an ordinary man leading an ordinary life in an extraordinary way. There you go. Now, what the heck does that mean? My brother and I were talking about football the other day, and he's 11 years younger than me. He was president of his JC chapter in Clanton, Alabama, the same year I was president here. But he and I were jocks. He was more of a jock than I was. I played football. I couldn't hit the basketball goal because I couldn't play basketball. I couldn't hit the baseball, so I couldn't play baseball, but I tried. But I wasn't afraid to hit somebody else. So that was perfect for football, right? I liked hitting people. And so did Glenn. So several years ago, we were talking about it. He kind of helped coach as a volunteer coach for Jemison High School. And he was telling me how everything had changed. So, and he was talking about running backs in particular. So what I want you to do is I want every one of you to stand up. All right. I christened you running backs. You are now running backs, right? Now, in my day, we had a double team and a trap on every hole, and we called it a hole. So what I want you to do is, you got to remember this too. You're not going to get the chance to run the ball every time, right? You got 3 backs in the backfield, at least we did. So you don't run the ball every time. You're going to be doing something else on the other plays. You're going to be blocking for somebody. I remember this weekend, the telecast said, look at Derrick Henry. He laid somebody out. He was part of the team. He had another role to play when he wasn't running the ball. But be that as it may, you're going to get the ball. So I want everybody to make like they got the ball. You got it in your hand, right? Now, under the old way, I'm going to tell you that I want you to go down that line and I want you to hit the hole. So I want you to imagine yourself going down the line and you're looking for what? A hole. All right, that's the way it was in the old day. So I'm telling my brother this, and he says, that ain't the way it is this day. He says, and I want you to imagine this, now you got the ball, and he says, we tell them this time to hit the seam. So I want you to do the same thing. I want you to imagine going down the line, and you're looking for a seam, and you're going to hit the seam. Am I right on this? Have you heard that? All right. Which is bigger, a hole or a seam? Oh, yeah. When I was in school, big holes. Had no competition. If I got a college degree, man, it was wide open for me. All I had to do was hit the hole, right? What you guys got to do? You got to hit the seam. It's not as easy. Sit down. You get the point? You're doing caretaker work most of the time, right? You know what a caretaker is. You're making sure everything's neat. Only every now and then do you get a chance to be a leader. And when you see that chance, you got to hit the seam. That makes sense, doesn't it? we talked about trust. Man, you know, I study a lot. What did we say? Trust was the foundation for leadership, right? Trust is the foundation for teamwork. Trust leads to faith. Faith leads to action. Action leads to change. Change leads to success. Success leads to innovation. Innovation leads to respect. I think that's what we said. I want to read you something. This is from the Scientific American, and it was a study. And here's what it said. It was a study on building trust on heart rate, I can't say that word, synchronization during joint problems. And here's what it said. When people are in the process of building trust among each other, their hearts get in synchrony and beat as one. They actually hooked these people up to EKGs, and they saw this physical fact. People's heart, when they're doing teamwork, tends to beat together. Now, I've experienced that in my job. When tornadoes and storms came, and my group was working together, we were all beaten together, guys. And here's what it says. Trust is a necessary ingredient for successful cooperation and of most importance for our society. That's what we started with, trust, right? Trust is important. And then we said, trust leads us to get out of the boat, right? To take chances, right? And what destroys trust? A review. This is a review. A lie, dishonesty. And so the object is to become a rock in the organization. Now, you guys don't know this, but y'all broke a tradition last week in this chapter. You broke a tradition. You are the first pledge class in 50 years to ever attend a chapter meeting. We're not training you to be pledges anymore. We're training you to be an integral part of this fraternity. We're training you to be leaders in this chapter and leaders in this fraternity. If you don't know what's going on, how in the heck can you do that? Right? Simple. You need to go look and see what's going on. Make up your own mind. That's why you were sitting there. That's why we broke the tradition. And then week 2, we talked about honesty with ourselves and others, open to change, motivation to serve others, and enthusiasm or love for life. And what did we say where do those traits of a leader reside? In the heart, because it takes courage to do that. And courage is a word derived from the French word for coeur, and it means to have a strong heart. Richard the Lion-Hearted, Richard the Coeur. He was strong in heart. We also talked about the 4 types of people. The arsonist, one always stirring up crap, starting fires. The stokers, the one who's always coming around kind of edging up those guys. The rubberneckers, who the majority of us are, we just come around and see what the hell's going on. We saw the smoke and fire, and we kind of come up there and see what's going on. And the most important people of any team are the firemen. Because they come in and say, wait a minute, that ain't exactly right. Oh, we don't need to be doing this. They put the fire out. And what did I say was the most important trait of a firefighter? They have courage, don't they? It takes a lot of courage to run into a burning building. Well, it takes a lot of courage to stand up and say, boys, this ain't right. This organization can't do this. Now, I'm going to give you a concrete example. Last year, during a hazing exercise, that we got caught doing, which we shouldn't have been doing, we had those 4 types of individuals. Wait a minute, we just had 3. We just had 3. We had, because when we interviewed them, we found out some of them had started it. They'd called this meeting together to jump on the pledges. Some of them say, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. The Stokers, I'm with you on that. The other third group that showed up, and they actually said this, we were just there. You know, I was smoking over the corner, I didn't participate. One of them said that, I was just smoking. You can see me on the film, I was just smoking. I wasn't doing any of that. He was a rubbernecker. What did we lack? What should our leadership said? What should somebody have said? Guys, this is against the rules of our chapter. This is against the rules of our university. We can get tossed out by our fraternity. Somebody's going to call their mom and daddy. And then their mom and daddy's going to call the fraternity. And they're going to come down here. We didn't have a firefighter in the group. As a matter of fact, some of our firefighters, leaders, knew what was going on. They left the house. They left the house. They advocated their responsibility. We can't have that no more, can we? Not if you want to be back here 10 years from now, 50, almost 50 like me, right? Have your son come back and come to ball games and enjoy it. Have your grandson, bring him back, see him play around this house. We can't have that no more. Plus, it's not the right thing to do, period. So this is the first class that we're going to train to be leaders, and I hope it continues. Because I think we said this too. Leadership is not about what you are in the organization. It's not about where you are in this world. It's about who you are. Personal leadership is about who you are. I hated to go over that. We've been over it before. But now, what I want us to do this week, leaders have a very keen sense about this next thing. Flip over where it says the third conversation. Now, we're going to talk about something that life is made up of. But first, I want us to do something. What does it say? We're going to talk about time, right? T.I.M.E. Well, we're not really talking about time in this. Tyler, you got a stopwatch? Okay, what I want you to do is, I want you to time us for 1 minute. 1 minute. And I'll tell you when to go. We're not going to say nothing. I want you to close your eyes. And just sit here for 1 minute. Tyler, you ready? Close your eyes, go. Wow. Did you fall asleep? Wake him up, will you? How long did that seem to you guys? That's a minute. 60 seconds. I was going across the bridge going into Dora, Alabama, when I found out our customer service system was a real-time system. Y'all know what a real-time system? It wanted information real-time with the power company. We weren't giving it real time. We'd feed it 2 days later. So I go to the office and I tell our linemen, I want you to call in every meter reading on that you do. Every time you set a meter, call it, we're going to enter it. We're going to enter the order. Well, they got to calling. And they'd call and nobody answered. They'd call again. They'd wait 5 seconds, call again. I said, guys, here's what I want you to do. I want you to call us and wait a minute. Wait 1 minute. Man, that was torture for those guys. 1 minute. And think about what you could have learned in 1 minute. That was a pretty good while, wasn't it? And I've heard old Riley say on that, you got 45 seconds. That's a long time. You can say a lot in 45 seconds. So what we're going to talk about is the essence of life and how you spend your minutes. And you're going to realize that T, what does it say? T, temporary. T stands for temporary. You are here a temporary time, 4 years, I hope. I was here 6. Took me a long time to get a degree. But I interrupted it a few times. But it's temporary. I want to read you this. Life is always changing. You can follow me, it's on here. And you have to learn to transition because to every time there is a season, to everything there is a season, and a time for every purpose under heaven, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to pluck up that which is planted, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to break down, a time to build up, a time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to mourn, a time to dance, a time to cast away stones, a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace, a time to refrain from embracing, a time to get, a time to lose, a time to keep silent, a time to speak, a time to love, a time to hate, a time of war, and a time of peace. It's a lot of times. That's from the book of Ecclesiastes, or the wise book, they call it. 600 BCE. That was a long time ago, wasn't it? I think the first time I really realized this is I already mentioned I like playing football. My senior year, the coach let us go out and absorb some of the pub before the game. I played at a little school, so he said, y'all go out and get dressed out and go out there, first game of the year, and just kind of go out there and sit next to the gym, and then when we get ready to run on the field, we'll come get you. So I go out there, I'm dressed out. I love football. And I'm laying against the telephone pole. And up comes Roy Ball. Now, Roy Ball was one hell of a quarterback for us. And he had street clothes on. And he was at the University of Jacksonville, Alabama. I remember he had on a coat and tie, and he had on a white, overcoat. I remember like it was yesterday. And I thought, man, that's the way I'm going to be next year. I better get it this year. I better enjoy this year, man. Now, I wasn't all county, I wasn't all conference, and I wasn't all state. I was 145 pounds, same height as I am now. Played defensive end and offensive end. I did get an honorable mention, and the more I think about that, I'm pretty proud of that, because the word honorable's in front of it, right? Honorable mention all county. We had 2 all-staters on our team. We had 5 all-conference, and of course the all-conference were all county and then me. But we lost our last game. But I realized right then I had to transition because it was going to go away, wasn't it? I still dream about playing football. You will be too. Taking the field and saying, Coach, I'm not eligible anymore. They don't know about it. Strapping it on, man, and getting out there and mixing it up. Look at that next one. I want you to read along with me on the next one. I read this not long ago. Faulkner, anybody know who Faulkner is? He was a great writer, University of Mississippi, wrote novels and stuff. And they asked him, why are your characters so real? And he made this response. There is no such thing as was. There is only is. If was existed, there would be no grief and no sorrow, because you would have the ability to forget about your mistakes. You would have ability to forget about your faults, because you could put it in the was side of your life. Forget it. But you and I are walking around all the time in the is, and all of those things are with us in the is. And he's saying that's what makes my character so good. They always got those things with them, the guilt and the grief of what they didn't do and what they didn't accomplish. Man, I read that about 3 or 4 years ago. I said, damn, that boy got it. You know that? He understands that stuff. So that's pretty important to me. Inspiration. The I stands for inspiration. If you think you're going to get out of this university or this world without a hard time, you're wrong. Under my desktop was a lot of sayings. And when I had a tough time, I had a glass top on there, and I had these sayings under there. We're going to talk about some of them the rest. But every now and then I go and read those sayings. And this was one of them, that Faulkner saying, under my glass top, because I had tough times with people, had tough times at my job. I needed inspiration. This is one of them that was under there too. You ever heard of Theodore Roosevelt, Rough Rider? He went to France and he was telling them what Americans were like. And he was giving a speech at the Sorbonne, which is on the left bank in Paris of the, what do they call it? Anyway, I'm having a senior moment here. The river. And here's what he said. I want you to read along with me. It is not to the critic who counts. It's on the next page, guys. Not to the man who points out how strong men stumble, or whether the doer of deeds could have done better. And it's got this in red. You might want. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error or shortcoming. But who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotion, who spends himself for a worthy cause, and who at best, in the end, the triumph of high achievement, and who, at worst, he fails. At least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who knew neither victory nor defeat. That's pretty cool, man. To me, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Did y'all get anything out of that? You're in the arena. This is the arena. Your mom and dad ain't around you no more. You're on your own for you know it. You're on your own. And they gonna help you. I had to go home 1 or 2, 3 times when I went home in the summer and had a summer job. But basically, when I got out of high school, I realized I like Roy Ball, man. There ain't no going back. I may dream about it, but football's over. I may dream about going back to mom and daddy's, but who in the hell wants to go back and live with your mom and daddy? Raise your hand if you want to go back and live with your mom and daddy. I don't think so. You're in the arena, so face up to it. Take courage. Look here, it says down here, talking points. The book about life, man's wisdom and folly. What is that? The Bible. I like that. I have a different view about the Bible. Yeah, it's about religion and all that, but it's about human error and human courage, and I love it. I go read it, and I use it. Jesus' parables were stories that were told to kids when they grew up. Those parables, he didn't just dream up. He took those parables and used them for another reason, to emphasize something. The stories we tell are parables. They can be used for anything we want them to be used for. I use his parables for other stuff. I like them. Tough times in life require inspiration. Fun stuff that excites you and motivates you. Think back on your successes. Use them now to fortify yourself. Say, hey, I got through that back then. I can get through it now. When I first got to reading, I read those books down at the bottom down there. You see these books? I read Dale Carnegie's books. He got a whole bunch of books on how to make speeches and how to win friends and influence people, how to stop worrying and start living. Those are great books. I read them as a young man. Zig Ziglar's books. Boy, I like Zig Ziglar. And actually, you can go and see Zig Ziglar on YouTube. I found that out about 6 months ago. I've been watching a lot of them. I wanted to buy his tapes when I was back in the 80s. I couldn't afford them. They were $500. They're free on YouTube. You can go there and listen to them. Steve Covey's books. Fantastic books. He wrote, my company made us read 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Then I went and found he wrote a book on principle-centered leadership, and I read that. This book. I read it. And I don't read books, guys. I dissect the suckers. I underline the suckers. I was reading this at the beach one week. And in the front of it, I was making notes for my employees. And it says, one team, take care to serve ourselves, learn safety in our relationships, each other, safety, our customers, our company, and when someone attacks our company, they are attacking us. This is something I've thought about for years and years, and I want to read you something in here. Because the next thing we're going to talk about is M. M stands for moments, right? And in this book, he says this. I'm going to bore you a little bit. I'll probably bore you a lot, but I'm going to read this to you. Even in the tension of the moment, it seems so much easier to live with the questions than with the answers. As long as we have questions, as long as we're in doubt, as long as we're struggling, we're not responsible for anything. We're not accountable for the results. We spend weeks, days, months, years wallowing in the mass of rational lies. What do we say about lying? If you're lying to yourself, you can't be honest to yourself. And that's what he's saying, rational lies. We've created to avoid the simple actions that would put us in harmony with the laws that govern the quality of life. The book is full of that kind of stuff, but that's so pertinent to us because we said we got to be honest with ourselves. So you got to know your strengths and weaknesses, and you got to keep working on those strengths and weaknesses and make it, instead of putting it off and lying to yourself, it'll be better tomorrow. It won't be better tomorrow if you don't do anything about it today. That's a great book. All right, we talked about knowing ourselves. The next one is moments. Life can change in a moment. I know y'all have all heard this one. 2 roads diverged into the yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And being one travel along I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, where it bent into the undergrowth. Then I took the other, just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as far the passing there had worn them about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden back. Look at the green. Oh, I kept for the first for another day, yet knowing how ways lead to way. I doubted I should ever turn back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, sometime ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by. And that has made all the difference. Y'all ever heard that before? Well, I want to tell you the kicker on this. Every one of your road is different. None of you will follow the same path. And that's the killer on this poem. Every individual thinks they get a choice, and they do, but nobody else has the same choices. Your path is unique. You determine it. What you going to do? That makes sense? That's the quirk about this poem right here. I read that. I wish I could find it, but it made sense then. That's what Robert Frost is telling us. Because once you start down a path, it accumulates on you, and you're not going to turn around and go back. Chances are there is no going back. That can happen in a moment. You see right there where it says the Reynolds job? On the next page it says Reynolds job. It says I quit college. I quit college. I was a senior. I had one semester left, a little over 16 hours, well, probably a little more than a semester. So I carry my dumb ass. You know what a dumbass is. We talked about dumbass, right? I carried my dumbass to Birmingham as a night auditor. And so I get up there and I said, man, I saw this ad in the paper for the Reynolds Tobacco Company. So I said, I'm going to go apply for that job. I applied for the job, had an interview with the guy, the district manager, and it was going good. I said, hey, I'm going to get this job, man. I don't even smoke. I'm going to get this job. So he calls me in his office and he says, Jim, I'm going to be honest with you. You were the top candidate, but I don't hire quitters. I said, what do you mean? He said, you quit college. You're a senior. I don't hire quitters. You know what my butt did? I took my dumb ass back to school, and I got my degree because I realized, contrary to this little poem, I could go back to college and get my degree, couldn't I? And that's what I did, because I knew that if I kept, at that moment, if I kept doing a night audit, or if I kept applying for jobs, 10 years down the road, somebody was going to tell me the same thing. They don't hire quitters. Guys, I couldn't stand that. You know, in football, you don't like quitters, do you? Life doesn't like quitters either. I knew better than that. I got my butt back in school, and I said, dumbass, you're going to sit here and you're going to graduate. My brain is taking over. Out of the way, ass. I told my son, what's that next thing say? The cost of wrong choices. I said, son, in life you're going to find out that if you make a wrong choice, it's going to cost you time. It's going to cost you money. Or it can cost you both, time and money. Just be aware of that. Just be aware of that. You're going to make wrong choices. But if you make the real bad wrong choice, you could be doing it for the rest of your life. That's where the next little thing comes in. You see where it says R&T Bakery? I thought, as a manager, I had managed 4 restaurants and general manager of 3 motels. I thought I could manage anything. I was 27, something like that, and I went to Cecil Gaines at last motel and said, Cecil, I want to get out of motel business. He was a financial advisor for the motel. Jim, I got a buddy, runs a bakery downtown. Now, this wasn't a bakery. This is an industrial style like Hardin's out here. It wasn't a corner shop. It was a big thing, 4,200 dozen rolls an hour. So I said, hey, that sounds like a good deal. So in comes this guy, and he hires me to be a management trainee. And I go down there. And it's in a room like this, 4,200 dozen rolls flying by. That was where Bill was. Remember I told you about Bill, the caretaker back there watching it? Well, I didn't have to stand around and watch stuff. I was a management trainee. So I was in the shipping department, and the baking department, and the mixing department, and the whatever. But it didn't take me long to figure out I didn't want to be a baker. But the only thing that got me through 6 months till I could find something else was the Lord's Prayer in the 23rd Psalm. And I kept repeating that, walking around in that bakery. I had on a little white hat, little white clothes, and one day I was walking out, and Mr. Yarborough was standing there in front of the big oven, and those rolls were coming out, and he was like this, guys. He had his white hat on, his little white, and he was rocking back and forth like this. And I walked in and I said, Mr. Yarborough, how you doing? He said, aren't they pretty? Well, he didn't really say that. He said, ain't they pretty? And I said, I ain't seen no women around here, man. No, I didn't really say that. I said, what are you talking about? Those rolls, man, look at them. Look at the crumb on those things. I'd never forget what he said. I thought, man, I got to get out of here. It cost me time. It cost me money. I had to pay $800 to an employment place to get a job when I went to work for economics. Who sold chemicals to hotels and motels. And the first year I was there, I had a 40% increase in sales. I loved it for a while. That wasn't me either. So then I decided to go to work for the power company. Back then I had a car. My wife could drive it. I made $20,000 a year. That was in 1977. A couple of years later, I pulled it out and couldn't believe I ever made $20,000. I went to work for the power company for $13,500. Time and money. Time and money. I made a wrong decision. Experience is the best teacher. It just costs too damn much. If you can learn it from listening to an old guy like me, I started to say something else, or you can read it in a book, you don't pay for it. It's cheap. It's a cheap way to learn. And that's what we're talking about here, learning how to be a leader. I told my son this. Look down there below R&T Baker. What does it say? It is important to know what you want to do. That's important, guys. But it's more important to know what you don't want to do. Because if you don't know what you don't want to do, you might wind up having to do it for the rest of your life. You might have a job, and I've seen it, and you can't quit because you got a wife and a baby and all, but you hate it, and you just can't quit. So the most important thing to know is to know what you don't want to do. Beta Theta Pi, BTP. Here's what I want you to remember about that. BTP. What does it say? Every day, begin today with purpose. When you hear Beta Theta Pi, think, begin today with purpose. I'm going to do something today. I'm going to learn about myself today. I'm going to learn about somebody else. I'm going to learn about and get an education. Things happen in a moment. Now, this next one that we're going to talk about, we've talked about time is temporary. You're going to have hard times. You're going to find something to inspire yourself. It can happen in a moment. A decision you make can affect the rest of your life. The third one, energy. There is so much energy in your body, and you need to tap it out. Remember when I told you I came home that weekend and I told my wife, don't talk to me? When I was a motel manager, I said, don't talk to me. I've lost it, Emily, because so much was going on. I had tapped out my energy. I went to bed, stayed in bed for 24 hours. It was a Friday afternoon. I had tapped out, guys, but I knew what I had done. So I came home, went to bed, rest, and got back up. Monday morning, I went back to work, and I had no problem after that. It's because of energy. Life is made up of that. Now, let's read this. Y'all can follow me. This is a little complicated. Remember thy Creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days come not, nor the years grow nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them. While the sun, or the light, or the moon, or the stars be not darkened, nor the clouds return after the rain. In the day when the keepers of the house are strong shall tremble, and the strong men shall bow themselves, and the grinders cease your teeth, because they are few, and those that look out the windows are darkened your eyeballs, and the doors are shut in the street when the sound of the grinding is low. You don't have any teeth, and you have to keep your mouth shut. And you rise up at the voice of the bird, and all the daughters of music have been brought low, you're deaf. And they shall be afraid of that which is high. My wife says we got to move because our bedroom's upstairs. And fear shall be in the way, and the almond tree shall flourish. The almond tree had white flowers. Your hair is going to turn white. And the grasshopper shall be a burden. You can't even carry a grasshopper, man, on your shoulders. That's how weak you are. And desire shall fail, because man goeth to his long home. And the mourners go about the street. Or ever the silver cord be loosed, your backbone, or the golden bowl be broken, your heart, or the pitcher broken at the fountain, or the wheel broken at the system, then shall the dust return to the earth as it was, and the spirit shall return to God who gave that. That's in Ecclesiastes chapter 12. I had to memorize that. As a Mason, I had to memorize that verse. 400 BCE. Guess what? The Bible's full of this kind of stuff. Those people thought deep thoughts back then, didn't they? Huh? They were human beings like us. They were thinkers, man. They were smart. This is a lesson to us. Remember now, in the days of your youth, before you get this old. And I want you to look at that. You see where I got desire shall fail? I underline it in green. Let me say this. No matter, you look at the green down there, no matter what your age is, if your desire fails, you're dead, guys. If your desire to do something, to accomplish something, to be something, fails, you're dead. Write you off. If you got a job you don't like, do something outside of work. My daddy was a chief clerk at Alabama Power. He was also chairman of the Board of Education for Chilton County for 30 years. He was president of Sunday school. He was president of the PTA. He was treasurer of the alumni group, football group. He was treasurer of the local fire department, volunteer fire department. He was president of his civic club. For 30 years, he was signing high school diplomas. O.J. McGriff. Y'all have heard Mark Borman speak, hadn't you? Y'all hear when Mark spoke? Okay, Mark Borman, the president of our house corporation, a lawyer. The first time I ever saw Mark, we were over at the Ferguson Center in 2005. We were talking about trying to figure out how to build this house. So I'm going up, you know how the stairs are in Ferguson, so I'm going up there, and I come around one side, and he comes around the other, and we're going up the middle. And I said, hey, you going to that beta meeting? He said, yeah, I am. I said, hey, I'm O.J. McGriff. He said, are you kin to O.J. McGriff? I said, yeah, that's my daddy. I'm a junior. And he said, your daddy is a smart man. And I said, yeah, I know. He said, because he was president of the Board of Education, and they had to go to the Supreme Court, Alabama Supreme Court. My daddy had to testify. He said, it's unbelievable what your daddy knows. Well, see, Mark knew something. I knew something Mark didn't know about my daddy. Every time he signed a high school diploma, it reminded him he didn't have one. He quit school in the 11th grade. But he didn't let being a general clerk at Alabama Power stop him from being himself where he wanted to be in the community, did he? He found another avenue of his desires to be something, somebody, to be a leader. My daddy did. My brother, who I just told you I talked to, is the circuit clerk for Chilton County. He was the tax assessor of Chilton County. He came up under the same daddy I did. It wasn't pleasant, boys. But you know not to lie to him. I respected my daddy, but he did not have a high school education. Sometimes educations kind of hinder us, you know, kind of limits us. I'll never forget asking my mom and dad for a magnifying glass. You ever ask your mom and daddy for a magnifying glass? I was a little boy, I said, I want a magnifying glass. And Daddy said, hell no, you ain't getting a magnifying glass. You burn the house down. I said, what do you mean burn the house down? He said, you know, it focuses and gets hot. Y'all ever fooled with a magnifying glass? You know what I'm talking about? Guess what I did the first time I got a magnifying glass? I went out in the pine straw and set it on fire. Years later, I just wanted to make sure it would do what he said it would do, right? I set the pine straw on fire. What the hell does that have to do with energy? What does that do with an individual's energy? A magnifying glass. You can focus your energy just with magnifying it, focusing it on something. Flip the next page. This next page says, focus your energy, right? Now, I've put the letters down there, HTCYA. Oh, HTCYA. That's the title of this course, isn't it? What does it stand for?
Take care of your ass.
How to control your ass, right? There's 3 general areas that I think, Covey says 4, there's emotional, but I think emotions is spirit. Emotion comes from your spirit. Your emotions come from your spirit. The spiritual. Now, I'm not getting to the religious side of this thing because I believe in that, but see right where it says decisions and ways? Didn't we just read a poem that says decision turned to ways and habits turn to take the wrong path? Right there. Decision leads to ways. All right, let's talk about discipline. Discipline is your magnifying glass. You discipline your ass to sit in that chair and get an education. You concentrate on getting an education. You concentrate on being spiritually and physically strong. How? Important goals. We've been talking about integrity and character, haven't we? Honesty and trust is the foundation of integrity. Love of your family. Avoid worry. You avoid worry by making right choices. Avoid guilt. That's the kind of decision you make when you say, I don't care if I got to lie about it, I'm going to do it anyhow. And then it don't go right. And then you got to lie about it. Most importantly, you got to lie about it to yourself. Remember, there is no was, there is only is. And you're going to carry this guilt with you from now on. You're going to think about it. My wife said, you know, Jim, if I'd have known you when you was in college, I don't know if I'd have liked you so much. I said, Emily Ann, you wouldn't have. I was a nut. I don't know what happened to me those 4 years. My mom and daddy were gone. I was having a good time. To hell with the rest of it, right? So I got to live with that the rest of my life. I couldn't get an MBA. I wanted one. Hell, I couldn't get, I had a C average at best. I had cut it off. So I kind of feel guilty about that a little bit. It's worked out good. I wouldn't change anything. But I did cut myself off from that, and I would have liked to have an MBA. Mental focus. Mental focus. I call that brain exercise. You know, you exercise your body to be strong, right? Play football. Education is educating your brain and making it stronger. Focusing on something you don't know nothing about, you don't give a damn about, but you're going to learn it anyhow, right? You never know what it might come up good. Economics, you know. Like, you exercise that brain to focus on it, on your education. Brain exercise. Be a lifelong learner. I've read probably an average of 2 books a month. I started out reading self-help books, and then I started reading business books. Then I found out nobody in my company wanted to talk about business books, even though they told us they wanted to talk about it. So I said, hey, I'm just going to quit reading business books. So I started reading biographies. Then I started reading memoirs, and I've started reading novels. Just got through reading Gone with the Wind. So I always had a path to read because, as I said, you develop your intellect, lifelong learner, and a reader and a leader. The third one. What is it? Physical. Exercise. I exercise every morning. I can't do full-style push-ups. I do 30 regular on-my-knee push-ups. I do 40 sit-ups. I do 40 toe touches. I do 40 leg lifts. I do 40 squats. No weights. Too old for that. I do 40 curls with 5-pound weights over my head. I spend about 30-something minutes every morning doing my exercise. My mama was 93 years old. She exercised up to a couple of years ago. Now she's just, but you just have to do it. So exercise. The other one. You're at a critical stage, and I'll tell you why. Avoid addictions. I remember the first time my brother took a drink of beer. He was an alcoholic. The first time my brother took a drink of beer, he was an alcoholic. I have fired people. You've heard that marijuana is not addictive. Y'all raise your hand if you heard marijuana is not addictive. Come on now, come on, be honest. Raise your hand. That's about everybody. Bullshit. I fired 2 guys because they were addicted to marijuana. That's not fun. Sent them to a 6-week dry out course. One of them quit smoking marijuana, but he kept drinking. Well, he got fired for drinking, but he got caught smoking marijuana. The other one, he was driving a chicken feed truck when he came to work for us. He came to work for me. He was one of my employees. Trained him how to do everything. He was good at it. He had 2 kids and a wife driving a chicken feed truck. Y'all know what that is? Every night he went around to the chicken houses up in west Alabama and put chicken feed in them. He came to work with one of the most foremost companies in Alabama. He came to work for Alabama Power. He had one heck of a job. He was making good money. And we did a test on him, and he was tested positive for marijuana. And they called him in and I said, "What happened, man?" He said, "Well, me and my wife went to the beach and I smelled it, I just couldn't help it, Jim." I said, "Well, I guess you know you're going to have to go through the program." It hurt everybody on the team because he was gone for 6 weeks. He was gone. And the determination of the program, he might not be back. But you know how those programs are. Oh, he's good to go. He came back. In 3 months, he got caught again. And I called him in and I said, "Man, what is it?" He said, "I just can't help it, Jim." So I went through the physical process of what I got to do, all the formal things. Give me your card, give me your keys. This is what you got, this is what you ain't going to get. I said, "I'm sorry, but you're no longer an employee of Alabama Power." And I said, okay, now, the formal part's over. My boss was in there with me. I said, we've done the formal part. Now I want to do the positive part. I said, I made the wrong choice when I was in college. I remember the day I smoked marijuana. I remember the fraternity brother that gave it to me. I like it got out clean, man. I came into my apartment one day and he was sitting on the bed and I was working full time, going to school, man. And he said, hey, Jim, what you doing? Nothing. Come on in here. And I came in there and I said, what you got? And he said, try that. Shit. That's pretty good for a while. But God, I look back on it now. God, I say, man, how stinking lucky am I? I had a brother that became an alcoholic with one drink. And years later, I look back on it, dang, man. I took other drugs. Stupid! I was like playing Russian roulette, man. I usually bring a picture this time, pass it around, a composite. And I circle a guy on that composite. And I pass it around. I say, I want you to really look at this guy real good. His mama called me. You know how your mama be. She called me, right? She said, I blame the fraternity for his death. He flunked out of school. She found him dead in his bed at home. OD'd on cocaine. He wasn't much older than you. And you got a choice to make. It can happen in a moment, just like me. Pew! And you got a choice. I wish I had said, no, I don't believe I want to do that today. Got something else on my mind. Because I'm carrying that guilt with me too. My wife said, you know, if I'd have known you then, I wouldn't have had nothing to do with you. I said, I'm glad you didn't. We've been married 40-something years, man. I'm a lucky guy. So I just caution you. Addictions. I'm not telling you not to do it. That's stupid. I'm telling you what the consequences are. You're either going to do it or you ain't going to do it. I know that. There are consequences, and you may get out clean. You know, there's another addiction on here I ain't got on here. I hated to write this one down because you know what I mean. What could it be? Another addiction. I'm thinking. Y'all thinking, what could it be? Lord, Lord, I hate to mention it. Sex. You see why I didn't write it down? Mamas may read this. Guess how many guys have been fired or demoted at Alabama Power that I know, friends of mine, because they jumped the desk and landed on their secretary. Or as we used to say, sexetary. I mean, depending on who you were fired or brought back to corporate headquarters and sat over in the corner and say, play tiddly sweet, whatever that game is, for the rest of your life. Whew. My wife called up two people she thought was after me that she knows that work for me. And I said, Emily, they didn't even come close, woman. Well, they were pretty. I said, I didn't see no pretty. I didn't see nothing. They were an employee of Alabama Power. They weren't my property. They were non-touchables. I had a girlfriend that worked at the first job I was at. She was pretty, boys. Yoo-hoo. She was pretty. And of course, me being me, in my wild and woolly days, I took her out. And we had a party or two. And I figured out that old girl wasn't for me. She was down from Linden, Alabama, and I picked her up at a trailer park. But she was pretty. And I came in every day and had to look at that woman. And I made a decision right then. Ain't never going to happen to me no more. So, I had a problem on my hands because Emily worked where I worked, my wife. So, I knew her, and I knew she was a straight-up woman. And I said, that's the kind of woman I want for my wife. But she was pretty too. But she was good. A good woman. Now, that's a bad problem, guys. She's pretty, she's a good woman. I think I love her. And she works where I work. Remember, I had that rule. Couldn't date anybody that was working there because I didn't want to see them if I had to break up with them. So I pretty much made up my mind I wasn't going to break up with this woman. So I asked her out, and it used to be Joe Namath over here. And on our first date, they came back the next day. At 2 o'clock, we always closed the coffee shop down at the motel, and I called her in there and I said, Emily, will you be my wife? So from that point on, I wasn't dating just an employee. I was dating my fiance, wasn't I? That didn't break my rule. Still living with her 40-something years later, man. What I'm saying is, those kind of things, drugs, those addictions, can carry guilt with them, and you will not forget it. It is always in the ears with you. All right. I think that's about got it. I wanted to say something else. I might have missed something here. Let's look back, because have I made all my points, guys? You see anything I missed? Oh, here's one. You let me skip it. Mindfulness. That is a big thing right there. I saw something on 60 Minutes the other day about mindfulness. You ever heard about mindfulness? You know what that is? Well, it's integrated knowledge, or it's peace of mind, or it's transcendental meditation. But it's bringing everything you know, physical, mental, spiritual, onto a problem in a mindful way and making a good decision. That's what mindfulness is. Okay. Next week. Are we getting anywhere? Yes, sir. Am I making any sense? I've been where you are. And let me say something. If I tell you a rooster dips snuff, look under his wing, you'll find his snuff box. You got me? What did I tell you I did when I was 21? There's the list I made when my daddy said he couldn't help me. This is the list, 40-something years later. Got up at 2 o'clock in the morning. It says here, I'm a junior at a major college in the United States. This year I voted for the first time. I can be considered a normal college student, having most of the attitudes toward life and success as my colleagues. In the back, after all these questions I wrote down, will I have a wife? Will I be able to earn a living? Because my daddy wasn't going to talk to me about it. And then you know what I realized? Your daddy can't talk to you about it either. My daddy couldn't talk to me about it because my daddy's world was different and going to be different than mine. Your daddy's world is different than yours. And you got to figure out all these stinking questions by yourself because they really can't help you. Your world is changing so fast. All I can give you is a rudimental of being a leader, and you got to make the decisions for yourself. I want to read you the last page. And I want you to think about what we're doing here. Why can't I answer these questions? Why am I afraid to ask any of these questions? If I ask these questions, will I be thought of as a liberal? Who can answer my questions about my life? Me, gooberhead. You're the only one that can. Think about the questions. Think about the questions that let's see, I can't even read my dang handwriting, that confronts me and generate my generation. Yeah, think about the questions that encountered your generation and tell the young guys about it. Tell your son about it and how you face them. Listen to young people and try to help them more. Listen to young people and try to help them more. 21-year-old boy. Have a challenge. We have a challenge which seems unconquerable to us now. This challenge is our future. Wow. Tell me I ain't been where you are. Next week we're going to talk about this. And there's a little reading exercise in it. I wouldn't want you to read this whole thing because, it's pretty thick. That's scary, man. We're going to talk about this. In the back of the book, in the back, there's an appendix to it, to this. Look it up. You find it? And there's just certain pages I want you to read, and I want you to answer those questions whether you agree or disagree. Now, the reason this is so important, remember I told you I found this book when I was a young man. This book was written by somebody who went through the Great Depression. He got different attitudes about things than we, a lot different. That's back in the 30s. He grew up in the 30s, man. So what I want you to do is, I want you to figure out, and I want you to circle agree or disagree to those questions. Just as preparation for next week. Now, like I say, I don't want you to read the whole book. That'd be dangerous. And a lot of it I don't cover, because some of it has to do with choices about religion. Some of it has to do about how to choose a wife. I don't really want to get into that. You know what I'm saying? Any questions, guys? Somebody needed one of these books, didn't they? And everybody got a copy of this now? Bring it next week. Hey, did you have a good weekend? Yes, sir. Was it cool, man? Yes, Roll Tide, right? Roll Tide. Thanks, guys.